Welcome to another NCIX Tech Tips NCIXPC episode. Today we have the IR-58C, which, just to remind you of the new naming scheme that is apparently better than the one that I made up all those years ago, is an Intel plus Radeon system that has 5-level or sweet spot performance, and it is the 8th model of this class being released, and the C stands for compact. Now, the 5 thing is the only one I would question a little bit, because if I was rating something like, oh, I don't know, the attractiveness of a person, 5 out of 9, that probably wouldn't be sweet spot. But don't worry, the system is. So as usual, we're going to start with the outside. By compact, we mean to say not necessarily small form factor, but definitely smaller than a typical mid-tower. So the Arc Mini is an mATX case, meaning that it supports up to 4 expansion slots. So yes, you do get a little bit less expansion than ATX, but with MSI's recent efforts with the Z87-M Gaming, you're going to get pretty much the same performance that you can get with a full-size ATX machine, just smaller and, well, more compact. So at the front of the case, we've got 2 5¼ bays as well as a filtered front intake. On the right-hand side of the case, we find a blank side panel because that's that Scandinavian design that Fractal Design is so well known for. On the left-hand side, we've got, yes, a plain side panel with additional cooling for the GPU and an LED fan, or this is just the prototype, guys. You can also get this system for around the same price with a windowed version of the case and interior LED lighting, although the windowed version doesn't come with that fan mount on the side. So you got to decide, guys, more cooling or more bling. On the top of the case, we find a reset switch, microphone, and headphone jacks, a power switch, as well as power LED and drive activity LED, 2 USB 2.0 ports, and a USB 3.0 port, as well as the entire top of the case being covered in honeycomb mesh, as well as filters, so that dust is going to be pretty much a non-issue for this guy. So I/O on the back, provided courtesy of the Z87-M Gaming from MSI, is a keyboard mouse combo PS2 port, 2 USB 2.0 ports, 6 USB 3.0 ports, gigabit Ethernet, and that is K1ller gigabit Ethernet. That is to say K1ller the brand, not that you will die. Optical audio out, HDMI display port, an additional HDMI, 2 eSATA ports, 7.1 audio out, and then, yes, and full support for easy Eyefinity with the Radeon R9 270X. So that means you can plug any 3 monitors into any 3 of these outputs, and you are pretty much good to go. Although you won't be able to run, 3 large format displays like 2560 by 1440 off of DVI, and HDMI, but most Eyefinity configurations will be taken care of. There is also a fan controller on the back that is pre-installed into the case that controls that side fan. So it not only turns the fan up and down, but it can also dim the LED on it. So removing the side panel is as simple as taking out a couple thumb screws, but we already did a take of this that was actually worse than that, so I'm going to go ahead and just keep powering on through this. So we took out the thumb screws, we take off the side panel where we see that red LED fan that is cooling the graphics card even more than it already would have been cooled. Next up, we've got, yes, the sweet spot components on the inside, and they really are sweet spot, not like the 5 out of 9 thing that I was joking about before. One thing you'll notice about this system is that no unnecessary money has been spent, so there is room for it to be upgraded according to your particular needs. Like, say for example, if you wanted an optical drive, you might have noticed that there wasn't one in the front. So it starts with the core components, the Core i5 that is. So there's a 4670K. If you did decide you wanted hyper-threading, you could step up to a 4770K, but the 4670K represents a great price to performance ratio, especially when you're overclocking, and it is fully overclocking ready. So the Corsair H40 that's installed in the back is actually using a bit of a different configuration than you'll normally find in an NCIXPC system, and that is to say it is intaking fresh air directly from behind the case and exhausting it into the case. What that does is it creates positive pressure overall inside the case because we've got 2 fans in the front that have been repositioned from the original stock configuration and are pulling air in, 1 fan in the back, and then finally, for exhaust, only 2 140mm BitFenix LED fans, so overall positive static pressure. Next up, we've got 8 gigs of Patriot memory running at DDR3 1600 megahertz, so that's pretty much, again, that sweet spot. Enough for Battlefield 4, but who knows what the future holds in terms of RAM requirements for games. But don't worry, you can always throw a couple more in, because even though it's mATX, you got a lot of expansion opportunities on this board. Speaking of expansion opportunities, that R9 270X can actually be paired with an additional one, or you can use those extra 2 expansion slots for other components you want, such as sound cards, although because this is an MSI gaming board, it does have a better onboard audio implementation to go along with its better LAN implementation than most typical non-gaming optimized boards. The SSD is taken care of by a Plextor 128 gig M5S, so once again, you could go 256 gig, you could add a storage drive, those would be very reasonable upgrades, but this is the bare minimum of what folks want. And finally, a 500 watt Integra power supply is enough for this system. If you do decide to go dual graphics at some point in the future, or you think you might, maybe step up on the power supply, but no unnecessary stuff, so no modular interface. But the good news is that the Arc Mini does have excellent cable management, so you hardly really see those wires running around anyway. So there you have it, guys. Sweet spot performance, lots of room for upgrades, of course, but not really anything that I'd recommend downgrading, because it's all about getting that bang for the buck. Now, speaking of bang for the buck, we talk about this a lot, but for some reason, it doesn't seem to sink into everyone, so we're gonna keep hammering away at it. NCIXPC systems are not like other boutique systems where you're paying $400 for someone to put together your computer for some reason when you compare the pricing of the system versus the pricing of the standalone components. I see a lot of comments saying, build it yourself, it's so much cheaper. No, it isn't so much cheaper. Go to PC Parts Picker, pick all these PC parts, put them in a cart or whatever it is they have over there, and actually compare. Not to mention that with NCIXPC systems, you of course get warranty, tech support that is never outsourced, and with this particular one, you get not only Never Settle Silver, which comes with the graphics card, but also a copy of Crysis 3, which is a $130 value, subject to availability. Please check the landing page link below for the most current info. So all that stuff that I'm supposed to say. Also, you get deals on gaming peripherals that only show up once you add a system to your cart, and you get the satisfaction of seeing a video of your system before you buy it, which you don't get if you buy a bunch of parts, although then you get the satisfaction of building it. Although what you could do is buy a pre-assembled system, take it apart and build it, which is what I actually did with my first system. Thank you for checking out this systems edition of NCIX Tech Tips. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this from NCIX.com.